A poor girl says to the billionaire, "Hi sir, why did you visit my orphanage every Christmas?" Imagine stepping into a towering skyscraper, your heart pounding with nerves, as you clutch a worn leather portfolio that holds all your hopes and dreams. For Emma Bennett, this moment wasn't just about landing a job. It was the beginning of uncovering secrets she never knew existed. The gleaming lobby of Summit Enterprises seemed worlds away from the modest Sunshine Orphanage, where she grew up. Yet fate had other plans for her on this day. As Emma nervously approached the reception desk, little did she know that one bold move would set off a chain reaction, unraveling mysteries tied to her past and connecting her life to the enigmatic billionaire Alexander Blackwood. Alexander Blackwood, his name alone carried weight in every corner of the business world. Known for his immense wealth and reclusive nature, he was someone people whispered about but rarely saw in person. So when Emma spotted him walking through the revolving doors, surrounded by an entourage of assistants, it felt surreal. She froze, recognizing his face instantly from countless magazine covers and news articles. But there was something else too. A memory tugging at the edges of her mind. Every Christmas for 10 years, a mysterious benefactor visited Sunshine Orphanage, bringing gifts and funding improvements without ever revealing their identity. Now, standing face to face with Blackwood himself, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that these visits were somehow connected to him. Summoning courage she didn't know she had, Emma stepped directly into his path. "Excuse me, Mr. Blackwood," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the hum of the bustling lobby. "My name is Emma Bennett. I know you're busy, but I need to ask you something." Her question hung heavy in the air between them. "Why did you visit my orphanage every Christmas?" For a moment, time seemed to stop. The noise around them faded, leaving only the intensity of Blackwood's steel blue gaze fixed on her. Instead of brushing her aside or having security escort her out, he studied her face with quiet curiosity before responding simply, "Follow me." And just like that, Emma found herself riding an elevator to the top floor, entering a world far beyond anything she could have imagined. What followed was not just an impromptu meeting, but the start of a journey filled with revelations about family, legacy, and redemption. Blackwood revealed pieces of his own past, how he once lived at Sunshine Orphanage himself, how those annual visits weren't about charity, but about giving children hope during difficult times. He spoke of loyalty and resilience, qualities he admired in Emma after learning about her determination to succeed despite challenges. Little did either of them realize, however, that this encounter was merely scratching the surface of deeper truths waiting to be uncovered. As weeks turned into months, Emma became part of Blackwood's inner circle, working closely with him on projects including saving Sunshine Orphanage from closure. It was during these efforts that unsettling questions began to emerge. A call from Sister Margaret mentioned Lily Matthews, Emma's childhood friend, who had returned with information about Emma's parents' tragic deaths. This revelation sent shockwaves through Emma's understanding of her own history. Why hadn't anyone told her the full story? What role did Blackwood play in shaping her destiny? Each answer led to more questions, pulling back layers of secrecy surrounding both her family and the man who had quietly influenced so much of her life. Blackwood wasn't just a distant benefactor anymore. He was someone deeply intertwined with Emma's past. Through old photographs and heartfelt confessions, she learned that her father, Daniel Bennett, had been Blackwood's roommate at Sunshine. Together, they shared dreams of a better future, until Daniel left to follow his wife, Eliza's passion for environmental activism. Their work took them to Brazil, where tragedy struck. A car crash that claimed their lives while leaving behind young Emma. But here's where things got complicated. Blackwood confessed that he brought Emma back to sunshine after the accident, believing it was the best place for her until he could provide stability. Yet years slipped by, and he never revealed his connection to her father, or the fact that she might have had a brother named Theo. The plot thickened further when Lily handed over documents suggesting Emma's parents' death may not have been accidental. Evidence pointed to corruption involving powerful logging companies, one of which had ties to Summit Enterprises itself. Could Blackwood's empire be linked to the very tragedy that defined Emma's early years? And what about Theo? Where had he disappeared to after surviving the crash? These unresolved threads created mounting tension, drawing Emma closer to confronting Blackwood about everything he knew, and perhaps even hiding. By now, viewers are probably wondering how Emma will navigate this tangled web of emotions and discoveries. Will she find closure with her long-lost brother? Can trust be rebuilt between her and Blackwood after years of hidden truths? Most importantly, how will these revelations shape her sense of identity and purpose moving forward? While some answers lie ahead, others remain shrouded in uncertainty, setting the stage for dramatic twists yet to come. So join us as we dive deeper into this gripping tale of courage, connection, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where relationships are tested, secrets come to light, and destinies take unexpected turns. Remember, sometimes the most profound journeys begin with a single question asked in a crowded lobby and end with finding home in the most unlikely places. As Emma sat across from Alexander Blackwood, absorbing the weight of his revelations, a storm brewed inside her. The billionaire, who had once seemed untouchable, now appeared fragile, almost vulnerable, as he admitted to knowing about Theo, her brother, and failing to reunite them. For years, Emma had believed she was alone in the world, an orphan with no ties to anyone. But now, faced with the reality that she might have had family all along, everything felt both overwhelming and incomplete. Her mind raced between anger, confusion, and hope. Could this man who had shaped so much of her life unknowingly truly be trusted? And where was Theo now? Blackwood's confession about dismantling Meridian Resources added another layer of complexity to the situation, while his actions suggested remorse and a desire to make amends. They also raised questions about timing and motive. Why had it taken him years to act on the corruption tied to Emma's parents' deaths? Was his decision driven by genuine guilt or self-preservation? These doubts gnawed at Emma, even as she tried to focus on the most pressing issue, finding Theo. If her brother was alive, then every second mattered. She couldn't shake the image of the little boy described in Lily's documents. The 5-year-old pulled from the wreckage of their parents' car, injured but alive. The tension grew thicker when Janet interrupted the meeting to announce Theo's arrival. When Theodore Alvarez stepped into the room, it felt like time froze. Standing tall despite his limp, his face marked by scars, yet radiating quiet strength, he bore an uncanny resemblance to Emma. His eyes searched hers with a mix of disbelief and longing, and for a moment, neither of them could speak. It was Theo who broke the silence, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "You were so small when they took you away," he said softly, kneeling before her. "I tried to hold on to you, but I was hurt, and they said you'd be safer with another family until I recovered." The words hit Emma like a tidal wave, washing over her with memories she didn't know she had buried deep within. As the siblings embraced for the first time in decades, Blackwood watched silently, his expression unreadable, This reunion should have been a moment of pure joy, but instead, it carried the weight of unresolved pain and unanswered questions. Theo explained how the family who adopted him fled Brazil out of fear, leaving him disconnected from his past. He recounted discovering newspaper clippings about their parents' accident during his university years, and how those fragments of information fueled his relentless search for Emma. Sister Margaret's name had come up repeatedly in his research, leading him to Summit Enterprises, and ultimately to Blackwood himself. Meanwhile, Blackwood revealed more about his role in the aftermath of the crash. His account painted a picture of chaos and miscommunication, a fractured system that allowed Theo to slip through the cracks. Though he claimed to have searched extensively for the boy, his efforts yielded nothing concrete. Whether intentional or not, his failure to find Theo left a gaping hole in Emma's heart. How could someone with such immense resources lose track of a child? Yet beneath his polished exterior, there was a flicker of something raw and human, a man grappling with his own mistakes and the lives they had altered. With Theo now part of the equation, the trio began piecing together the puzzle surrounding their parents' deaths. Lily's documents provided damning evidence linking powerful logging companies to illegal activities in Brazil. The reports hinted at collusion involving government officials, suggesting that Daniel and Eliza Bennett weren't victims of a random accident, but targets silenced for exposing corruption. This revelation cast a shadow over Blackwood's empire, particularly its acquisition of Meridian resources. Had Summit Enterprises inadvertently inherited blood money? Or worse, had Blackwood known more than he let on? These suspicions simmered beneath the surface as preparations for Sunshine Orphanage's reopening intensified. Emma threw herself into the project, channeling her emotions into creating a safe haven for children who, like her, needed stability and love. Working alongside Theo brought unexpected comfort. They discovered shared passions, including astronomy, which became a cornerstone of the new facility. Together, they envisioned a future where Sunshine would stand as a beacon of hope, honoring their parents' legacy while protecting others from similar tragedies. But just as things seemed to settle into place, a new twist emerged. During a routine inspection of renovation plans, Emma stumbled upon an old blueprint tucked away in Blackwood's archives. It detailed modifications made to the original orphanage building shortly after her return from Brazil. One section labeled Storage Room B caught her attention, not because of its purpose, but because it matched descriptions in Lily's documents of a hidden compartment used to store incriminating evidence against Meridian resources. A chill ran down her spine as she realized what this meant. Blackwood hadn't merely dismantled the corrupt subsidiary. He had safeguarded proof of its crimes, right under everyone's noses. Confronting Blackwood about the discovery tested the fragile trust they were trying to rebuild. At first, he deflected her questions, citing legal protocols and confidentiality agreements. But Emma pressed harder, determined to uncover the truth. Finally, he relented, admitting that he kept the evidence secure in case it was ever needed again. "Your parents fought for justice," he told her, his voice heavy with regret. "I couldn't let their sacrifice be forgotten." While this admission offered some closure, it also underscored the moral grey areas Blackwood navigated as a businessman. For every act of redemption, there seemed to be shadows of compromise. As Emma grappled with these contradictions, she found herself torn between gratitude for his support and distrust of his motives. Would he always prioritize his empire over people, or had he truly changed? The climax approached as the reopening ceremony loomed closer. With reporters scheduled to attend and dignitaries expected to speak, tensions reached a breaking point. Emma wrestled with whether to expose Blackwood's connection to Meridian Resources publicly, potentially tarnishing his reputation, but ensuring accountability. Meanwhile, Theo struggled with reconciling his anger toward Blackwood with the undeniable bond forming between them. Each decision carried consequences that rippled outward, affecting not only their lives, but also the future of Sunshine Orphanage. On the eve of the ceremony, Emma stood alone in the courtyard, staring at the newly installed telescope. Its presence symbolized curiosity, resilience, and the infinite possibilities awaiting those willing to explore. As she gazed upward, tracing constellations in the night sky, Theo joined her. They didn't need words to understand each other's thoughts. Tomorrow would bring answers, or perhaps more questions. But one thing was certain: family, no matter how fragmented, always found its way home. As the little girl wandered back to join her friends, Emma turned to face Blackwood and Theo, her heart swelling with emotions she couldn't quite put into words. The weight of everything they had uncovered, the secrets, the pain, the connections, felt both overwhelming and strangely liberating. For so long, she had carried questions about her past like a heavy burden. But now, standing between her brother and the man who had unknowingly shaped their lives, she felt something new: clarity. Still, one question lingered in her mind, gnawing at her even as the moment seemed perfect. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She wasn't accusing, she was searching for understanding, for closure. Blackwood hesitated, his usual composure faltering just enough to reveal the vulnerability beneath. He glanced at Theo, then back at Emma, as if weighing how much more he could bear. "Because I failed," he admitted finally, his tone raw. "I failed your father by not being there when he needed me most. I failed Theo by losing him after the accident. And I failed you by keeping you at arm's length, thinking I was protecting you." His gaze softened. "But seeing you two together, it reminds me that some bonds can't be broken, no matter how hard we try." Theo stepped forward, placing a hand on Blackwood's shoulder. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. "You gave us sunshine," he said quietly. "That place saved me when I thought I'd lost everything. Maybe you didn't do it perfectly, but you did what you could. Isn't that what family does? We stumble, we fall, and then we pick each other up." Emma watched this exchange, her chest tightening. These were the pieces of her life coming together. Not neatly, not without scars, but authentically. She realized then that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting or excusing mistakes. It was about choosing to move forward despite them. Her father's legacy wasn't just in the work he'd done for the Amazon. It was in the people he'd inspired to keep fighting for justice, for love, for hope. Blackwood had honored that legacy in his own way, flawed though it might have been. With the reopening ceremony underway, the courtyard buzzed with energy. Children laughed and played, their joy infectious. Sister Margaret stood nearby, watching the scene unfold with tears in her eyes. She approached Emma later, pulling her aside. "Your parents would be proud," she said simply, hugging her tightly. "They always believed in making the world better, even if it meant risking themselves to do it." Emma nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She hadn't known her parents' full story until recently, but now she understood why they had chosen the path they did, and why their sacrifice mattered. As night fell, the trio gathered around the newly installed telescope, its polished surface gleaming under the soft glow of string lights. Theo adjusted the lens, pointing it towards Orion's belt. "Remember this one?" he teased, nudging Emma. She laughed, recalling the countless nights she'd spent staring at the stars during her time at Sunshine. Back then, she dreamed of finding her place in the universe. Now, surrounded by family, she realized she already had. Blackwood joined them, his expression uncharacteristically relaxed. "I never thanked you," he said, addressing both siblings, "for reminding me that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building something meaningful from it." He gestured toward the renovated orphanage, its windows glowing warmly against the dark sky. "This place is proof of that, a new beginning for all of us." In the days that followed, Emma found herself reflecting on how far they'd come. The evidence Lily had uncovered about Meridian resources had been handed over to international authorities, ensuring that the corruption her parents had fought against wouldn't go unpunished. Summit Enterprises announced plans to expand its conservation efforts globally, with Theo leading the initiative. Emma, meanwhile, continued working alongside Blackwood, using her marketing expertise to amplify the company's ethical mission. Together, they were rewriting the narrative, not just for themselves, but for future generations. One evening, as Emma sat alone in the courtyard, she opened the worn leather portfolio she'd clutched so tightly on her first day at Summit Enterprises. Inside, she found the yellowed photograph of her father and Blackwood, along with a note Theo had slipped in earlier that day. "Family isn't just blood," it read. "It's the people who remind you who you are when you forget." Tears pricked her eyes as she tucked the note back inside, closing the portfolio gently. Above her, the stars twinkled brightly, infinite and unwavering. Emma smiled, feeling a peace she hadn't known was possible. Life had thrown her challenges, losses, and uncertainties, but it had also given her resilience, purpose, and love. And as she gazed upward, tracing constellations in the vast expanse of sky, she knew one thing for certain. No matter where life took her, she would always find her way home, to sunshine, to family, to the light that guided her through the darkest nights.